Okay. So what this we're on week 5 of Agent Track, and this is getting the listing, and this is one thing I have a lot of passion for because that's been my forte as far as my career in real estate. I really prefer the listing side. Always have. I work better with sellers than I have buyers, and it's kind of been my little niche that I've focused on and want to focus. So kind of if you do get caught up and watch the uh, the videos, kind of how they start it. Of course, can't get a listing unless we lead generate. You have to find things to generate business, and kind of the four things they had. And of course, these are things you can or cannot do. You can choose your own things, whatever you choose. But this was for what they actually had in the course. But the first one was for sale by owners, FISBOs, door knocking, expireds, and circle prospecting. And two of those are your what's considered your low hanging fruit that would be the easiest to get for any agent, or especially a newer agent or somebody that's looking for a listing quicker. Of course, you're for sale by owners and expires, and the reason being for those, they're already saying, "Hey, I need to sell." They're ready to go. Now, there's different strategies for working those, and we'll get into those here in a little bit for those. And then door knocking, if I know everybody knows what door knocking is, but what you need to be doing in those situations, especially say you have a listing in an area, door knock the surrounding neighbors, tell them about the listing if they have any needs to look to sell or if they know of anybody looking to buy. Same thing if you do open houses, door knock the area. And then from one company we used to work for, there was a guy, he just door knocked for listings, talking to people, building a relationship. And he would literally come in almost every week with a listing from door
Wow.
knocking only. And typically, what he done, he took things of value, either market analysis or he took little gift baskets or things just to introduce himself, kind of break the ice, and went that. And what circle prospecting essentially is, that is a lot of times it is cold calling in a sense, but you can just start calling neighborhoods. There's programs out there, Cold Realty, RedX, Mojo, some that you can purchase to get numbers. Our area, what we found in the past, I'd purchased Cold Realty Resource at one time. The data's so as far as the numbers, so sometimes it wasn't as accurate, but you can get things. And the good thing, what you want to do a lot of times, those you put it in the dollar and you can call. So, and what you're doing, the reason they call it circle prospects, say you have a listing, so you start calling. Say you don't want a door knock, you'd rather call, and of course, calling's a lot quicker. You're
Mhm.
calling the circle around the area. Or even if a listing, say in the office, it doesn't even have to be your listing. You can circle prospect, let people know that there's a new listing. Same kind of criteria if they're looking to sell anytime soon, any real estate needs. So that's things to do. And then, of course, like asking your sphere, that's going to always be one of your greatest. Let me let Jerry in here. But that's what's going to be one of your greatest things to get listings. Your sphere, those people, they already know you, they trust you. So it's easier to work your sphere however you want to do it, call on those people, social media, things like that. And then there's tons of other ways. You can do internet leads or whatever you want to try to get the lead generation down. But the biggest thing for the lead generation to get listing, do what you're comfortable doing. Don't, if you're not comfortable doing something, you're going to come across awkward or you're not confident, and people are going to see through that. So you got to do something that you're comfortable with for the lead generation on the listings in order to get those.
Hey, Jerry.
You're late.
Yeah, he's here.
You're here, so but we'll go over some of these, but like we were talking, Jerry, kind of the well, I had five little things. You can choose what you want, but for lead generation, Gene. For sale by owners, door knocking, expired, circle prospecting, and asking your sphere. So what I wanted to do first is working with for sale by owners. And a lot of people's intimidated by that, working with for sale by owners and calling it. Um, and there's ways to work a for sale by owner correctly. And the problem, most agents, they call one time, hey, can I come list your house? For sale by, no, I'm just going to sell it myself, things like that. And the number one reason most for sale by owners, do you all know the number one reason they try to sell it themselves?
Commission.
That's the number one reason. They think they're saving money. And in all reality, typically for sale by owners sell for less. Realtors sell their homes for more. Typically, most realtors they're going to sell it for 97% plus of the list to sell price. Most for sale by owners, statistically, they end up selling 89 to 91% of what they asked for. So they took a huge loss. So they can pay the commission plus still make money by listing with a realtor. And honestly, most for sale by owners, over 80% of them will end up listing with a realtor. So it's the agents that are being consistent, working them, providing value that end up getting those listings. So there's really kind of like an 8 step thing what you want to do with the for sale by owners. If you do call them, the biggest thing a lot of agents call, they'll say, "Hey, I've got a buyer. Can I look at your home?" Or da da. Don't they'll see through you really quick. Don't ever say, "I've got a buyer" if you don't have a buyer. But what you want to do is call them and tell them you like to know what is going on or what's staying in our market, keep up with the comparables, even though they're selling themselves, would it be fine if you set up a preview? And during the preview, kind of build the relationship. Don't even really try to get the listing. Don't come across because most agents, like I say, they're calling asking for the listing one time and that's it. So these people are hit every angle by agents constantly just soliciting listings. So go about it a little bit different approach. Try to get a showing. That way you can work with them. Say, hey, if I do get a buyer, most of them will pay a commission on the buy side. They're fine with paying usually like 3% or so on the list or the buy side. They just want to save the other 3% on the list side. So you can go in from that approach and work them on that. And then while you're talking to them, previewing the house, again, kind of go through their motivation, where they're looking for, build the relationship, the trust, and also ask them, are they looking to buy something else? Do they have an agent on the buy side? Try to get them on the buy side as well. A lot of agents don't even, they're just calling straight for the listing. Well, most of the time people buy, they buy through a realtor. So you can solicit that part and build that. So next, after that, what you want to do the next 8 weeks, you're going to be following up with them and you're going to be providing things of value. And you want to be consistent, like you want to pick a day, and you want to work a bunch of FISBOs. You really don't want to work just one. And I know sometimes our market, where it's smaller, it may not have a ton like some of these markets, but you want to try to keep 8 to 10 going at all times. That way you're having a pattern working, and the chances of you getting the listings rolling in over these 8 weeks are going to be higher and generating more business. But like after you preview the home, a good thing to do, send them a handwritten note, kind of what we're supposed to be doing in track. Thank them for meeting with them and all that. Just send them a little personal note, or you can email them, try to get their information too while you're there, phone number and all that. Try to let Gina, I thought I let her in a minute ago.
You did. She's
Oh,
gonna be on there twice.
maybe she's getting on her computer and her phone, but that's the thing. What you want to do with that. So every week you want to pick a day. Same time, you want to follow up with them, either text, call, email, say, hey, how's things going? How's the week been? You had any showings? Try to find any activity. And maybe at that point, send them a CMA. Just do a brief CMA, show them what's going on in the market, or maybe homes that sold. One next week, say, here's a lender we prefer. If you get any buyers, here's their contact information. Next week, maybe staging info, different things. So you want to provide something of value every single week that you're going through the process of working this for sale by owner. And what happens, most of them end up getting tired of fooling with it. They don't have time. The buyers aren't approved, and they just get fed up. And then that's when they start thinking, we do need to call a realtor. And by that time, you've already got the competitive edge because I guarantee you're probably one of the only ones that have consistently followed up every week, every week, every week. And they're going to remember that. And more than likely, you will end up being able to get that listing. So that's the easiest way to work the for sale by owners. And I know it's hard. A lot of people just that initial call, the scared, but the more you start calling and talk to them, it just becomes easier. And then when you find out how many you can really start listing and you're selling them and the money's rolling in, it's a great motivator to keep that going. So it makes it a lot easier. So, and then, which I know this month we're working on the expireds, and right now Ann and Roxy's winning. I think
I think
they
so.
got three, so you got some catching up, Kirk. But
I do. I have to get with it quick.
yeah, But the expireds are a great source of instant business as well. And the reason being, they've already listed it didn't sell. Typically they need to sell. So you want to go about the expireds a little bit different, and sometimes it can be a little bit long-term approach like the for sale by owners. But the easiest way, check the, of course, the MLS we see every day. It's got the expired column. You can look, and there's going to be expireds almost daily. Now, always the first of the month, that's going to be most agents expire their listings the last day of the month, and then the first of the month, you're going to have a huge expired column that you can work. And those are the best days, but I would look every single day. And now there's different ways to do this. Same thing, you can call them. That's the number one thing I would do. You can look up, there's services, again, RedX, LandVoice, that you can purchase to get the expired data. But we've got Forewarn. That's the easiest way, just to look up that address. You can look up the owner name and get their phone number and call them and kind of be the same thing. Like, one thing, what you may want to do to get them, are you still interviewing agents to sell your home? That's a little thing to get them start going and talking. And then you can build from that to find out what went wrong. Most of the time, we've sold a lot of expireds over the years, and the majority of expireds, it's been lack of communication. Their agent come out, listed it, put a sign in the yard. They never heard from them again, unless there was a showing. There was never any feedback. They didn't know what was going on in the market, things like that. So a lot of times the expireds, they're kind of aggravated with realtors just for the simple fact the how that agent was. So you got to make it, all realtors are different. We all run our business. I need to show you what I do differently and how I'm going to communicate, how we're going to get you to the closing table and get you moved to wherever you're needing or get you that new house, what you're doing. So that's the biggest approach you need to work with expireds. And like, if you watch the videos, they had three things, the reason expires don't sell, but it really boils down to one. They had price, location, and condition, but it all factors around price. If it's a bad location, you have to adjust the price. If it's poor condition, you have to adjust the price. They're not going to get what a fix up, ready, move in home if it needs a ton of work. So that's the biggest thing in providing the market data to let them know and understand this is what it needs to be. This is where it needs to be in line. And it's just like any listing. That's the biggest thing, any listing appointment. A lot of agents don't have these deep, hard conversations with the sellers up front. They let the seller pick the price. Okay, we'll get it on there. We'll try to get it sold. And it sets a higher expectation for the seller than letting them know up front, hey, your home's only worth this. We can try at this amount, but we need to start adjusting pretty quick. So you got to have these hard conversations up front, or you lose traction on the backside, and then it's so much harder to actually get a price reduction later when you need it. So if you've had the conversations up front, you've had provided the data, it's so much easier and they understand. But it's harder on the back thing. But that's the big thing too. Like with expireds too, when you do talk to them, ask them, why do you think it didn't sell? If they start bashing the realtor or anything, don't ever talk about another realtor. Just talk about what you're going to do, what I'm going to do. This is the difference. This is what we do to sell properties. And you can go in that spiel, with most of the things like what we knew, which most agents, they're doing professional photography. It's going to be on the MLS. Another thing a lot of agents don't talk about. Well, some agents don't even tell that it's putting on the MLS. We're syndicating all there. We're members of List Hub. It goes on over 82 different websites. We have one of the biggest social media followings in our market that we're pushing listings out and getting buyers and activity there. But the biggest thing, what you want to do again, is the communication. What you're going to do to sell the property. You're going to keep them weekly, regardless if we've had any showings, activities. You can show them the activity on the MLS, how many buyers it's been sent to. Same thing with Zillow, which they can see that themselves. But you're following up. You're giving them what's going on and what you're doing to try to sell the house. And that's the biggest thing where most agents fail when a listing expires. So, but it's one of those things too. But contact them as soon as it expires. And you can go to the script booklet. There's scripts in there for expires. Kind of learn those, understand them, role play if you can with them, and kind of you're going to get the same objections, but kind of what we went over is the majority of the objections you're going to get on expireds. And then some expireds, they want to list today, so be prepared to go list it right then and there within a day or so. Now, some expireds, they may be like the for sale by owners. We're going to wait a little bit, see what happens with the market. At that point in time, you need a follow up plan. So you need to kind of do with the for sale by owners. You need to start following up every week or so with them and get that as well. And another thing, I don't think what we used to do all the time, we mailed letters to them. So, and the thing too, a lot of times you may not get somebody on the phone. So you're going to have to do multiple avenues to contact them. Call them today. If you don't get them, call, leave a message. Tomorrow, text them. Next day, email them. Send them the letter. Keep doing everything over and over. And I don't know if I've told you all, but I've told a lot of people we had a story of expired. I can remember him today. I can tell you his name. I won't where this is being recorded and all that, but this has been several years ago. We sent a letter. The guy called us. It was 2 years. He kept our letter and he still had our business card from an expired. He never relisted nothing for those 2 years. And then where we'd seen it, he kept that and he called us, then we sold it. So that's the power of the letter sometimes and things like that, that they have a tangible that they can hold on to. But expireds, we've made a ton of money on expireds. And a lot of times expires, well, like with any client, do a great job, they turn into referrals, they turn into repeat business. So it just cycles from that. But those are some great ways to get instant business on listings. Does anybody have any questions on any of those FISBOs, expires, or anything so far, or want to discuss anything?
Yeah, like for me, I was going to have somebody to kind of show me how to maneuver through that. I'm not very good at maneuvering through I guess it's the flex or whatever that you find expires. I don't have no problem calling people. I just have problem finding. If I could find them, I'd call them, but I still can't find them on there.
It
It's
should be. I'll pull it up. It's on your home screen. Let me get it pulled up and I'll share my screen.
it'll keep telling me that there's no new listings, there's no new expireds, and I'm just like, well, I don't know.
I'll have to look to see how you have your hot sheet set up. Let me share my screen real quick. See if you all
Can you see that?
can you see my screen?
I can now, yeah.
Okay. You should have your hot sheet right here needs to be set up. That way it shows. Then it shows everything right here, and your expireds are right here. So you need to check your hot sheet, Jerry, to see how it's set up. And you can set it up whatever counties or areas you want. I've got mine set up for kind of the five around the Tri-County area. I've got Jackson, Clay, Laurel, I think Knox and Whitley are what I've got. And what you can do if it doesn't have that, these three dots right here, I think you can go to settings and then you can add in the counties right here you want for it to pull up the daily hot sheet and then you just save it. And then what that shows, any activity on any listing in these areas is right here. All the new listings, anything's canceled, your closed listings, expired, pending, contingent, withdrawn, extensions, back on market, price change, coming soons, or even if the text they've changed something in the wording of the marketing or something, it even shows that. So this is the data. This is where you get your expireds every day, right here. The easiest way. Now, of course, you can come in here and do a quick search. And here's another thing, what you want to do, expireds too. A lot of agents, they may work them right now. So there's a gold mine in searching back farther. You may want to go back for a year and search expires and start working those that didn't sell. Now, the key you got to be careful with, cross reference. Here's one thing some agents get in a little trouble. If you do work expired, it may show expired here, but if you don't cross reference with the listing, make sure it's not been relisted. Same thing if you do the expired. So let's look at one here. Because there was one I saw, I think Amanda Hughes or one that expired and she'd relisted. So on the expired list, it shows this one. So 1644 Highway 578. We'll type that in. Well, if we look, it's back active. It expired yesterday and she brought it back today. So if you just go by the expired list and you didn't cross reference it with the active listings, you would have been in violation if you call or solicit that listing expired. So just always double check and make sure that the listing has not been relisted. Because, like I say, it may expire yesterday and it's going to show on the expire list, but if they relisted today, unless you cross reference, you will miss that. But same thing, like if you want to go back farther, just do a simple search and here on your status, just change this to expired and then search, say we want to go back to March of last year and I just want to look up Laurel County. So there was 134 expireds in Laurel County last year. So you can come through, pick which ones, which it's got something like this lease. Of course, that's a lease. You're not going to work that. This was lease. But you can start working these, pick what you want. Now, when we would do this, now if it was a really bad property or need a ton of work, sometimes I wouldn't work those. I would be selective on some of these and try to work nicer listings. But you can come through and start working these. And a lot of times, what I would do too, you can print a one line CMA, and that way you just have it a lot cleaner version. Then you can go through and start searching that way to do that. So. But that's the easiest way to find them. Like I say, if your hot sheet's set up, they should be right here. And every day you can see what's expired. So we can see here today in these 5 counties that I've got selected, there was 8 expireds. So, and then we can see which this was, they've had this as commercial and residential. So, but there's 5 and then that was relisted or 8. So, probably 5 that you could actually work potentially. I've not looked these others up to see if they listed, but that's how you work the expireds and that's how you find them every day. And then you can start calling them, emailing or texting or sending letters, whatever you need to do. But the goal too sometimes is going back beyond just today because these are all getting hit by a lot of agents. So start going back, up to a year. And those are people that's long gone. People aren't calling them. There's really little competition in the older expires that if they've not relisted. And a lot of expires, I don't know why, but some will relist immediately, but some take a break. Maybe they had the bad experience or whatnot, or they're going to put things on hold until maybe the kids are out of school or it expires, around the holidays. So they're like, we're going to wait till spring. Those are the ones that agents let slip through the cracks and they don't contact them again. So, okay. So, any more questions on any of those? Okay. Now, which a lot of this I'm kind of going by if you have your track book, and I'm not saying you need to get it now, but is this stuff is listed in there and you're going to go through it as well. But the next step is kind of preparing for the listing. You've actually talked to them, you're getting ready to go list, or that you've got a phone call, come list me call. And one of the number one things I can say when you're talking to a seller that a lot of agents, I hear it in our office, I hear it other agents across the board, when they're just so excited to set that appointment and go to the house. Well, we always need to be prepared with the CMA, but how can we be prepared with the accurate CMA if we don't start asking questions about the property on the initial call? So that's the number one thing when you talk to a seller during the initial phase. Ask them what they love about the house, what improvements. Tell me about your house. Does it have hardwood, granite? Let them explain in detail things they've done, upgrades they've done. That way we have a better visual of the listing. And more than likely, that listing, even if it's FSBO, it's sold at some point in time. You can pull it up on the MLS. If it's not, we can still look on the PVA. You may not get the inside, but if you're asking those questions, you're getting the visual of what the inside and the amenities and things like that. So that's a step a lot of agents forget. And then when they get there, they may have prepared a CMA and it may not be worth the paper they wrote on because they've done all these upgrades for the listing. And another thing too, going back to the CMA, you want to do a full CMA when you do this and always print it in color. That is one step. A lot of agents just go in there and they'll just talk or tell them a price. we need data. We need proof. We need actual things that they can see, they can visualize. And what this is doing too, it's setting the bar. You're the professional. That's what we always have to come. This is a professional career. We are the experts in this, and we have to prove it to these people and show the market knowledge what we're doing, and we know what we're doing. And this is why they're choosing to list with us because we have their best interest. And again, this goes back to pricing. A lot of agents just let the sellers price it, whatever. They're just again excited to get the listing. A seller say the house is worth 300 and the seller wants 400. Okay, yeah, no problem. We'll list it that. We'll get it out there without having that discussion with the seller and showing them the comps. That's not what the market's telling us. We can list it, but at that point in time, don't really ever turn down a listing unless they're just so far out, because most of the time they will come in line. But if you don't have that discussion about the pricing and show them the comps, it's going to be hard to get that listing down later. Because if you told them up front, yeah, we'll list it for that, shouldn't be no problem, then they don't want to drop it later. Well, you told me I could probably get this. You got to set the expectation up front in order to get the reductions later. Of course, the goal is to always get it priced right from the get-go, because things does happen that we can get it sold quicker. And again, too, like it goes to when you're talking to them, you got to find their motivation. Why do they want to sell? They're moving to get to the grandkids or something. Okay, find those things. Like what's their time frame? So find out the details. That way we can build from that. Because if they just say, well, we're just kicking the idea, if we could get this for it, we might sell. Well, that to me is telling me they're not really motivated. So if they just say, I'm just thinking about it, if somebody come in and give us 400,000, we'll move. Me knowing we can't get that, and then again, it's having that conversation up front and say, yeah, okay, we'll get it out there. Now, and I know it ain't going to sell, but what's the point of having a listing if it ain't going to sell? It does you no good. You're never going to make a dime off of it. What happens? The sellers get mad, and who do they take it out on? It's going to be you. And that's the big thing for the conversation up front to get that in line later that we can eventually get it sold if they start high and then go into. And a big thing too, you want to tell people if they do start high, uh, the market is kind of picking up. We're hitting the spring market now. So people ask them. Rachel had an agent call today on one of our listings. They're like, why is it sat so long? What's wrong with it? So the longer a house sits on the market, it kind of stigmatizes it. So that's the thing too. We need to make sure the sellers understand the longer it sits, it hurts it. It really does. And honestly, if they price it right from the start, 9 out of 10 times they're going to get more money than if they constantly drop, because it just looks like it. And then when they keep dropping, people think, well, I'm going to wait, or I'll get a better deal, or they lowball, and those kind of things. So that's the best thing to do. Try to price it from the start, um, to get the most for it. And then a lot of times their first offer, if they priced it right, is usually their best offer in those situations. And again, when you're talking to the people, the number one thing is just, again, the knowledge, showing your professionalism, but the relationship. Make it about them too. Don't do most of the talking. A lot of agents just get in there and just, I'm going to do this, 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 this. Again, this is where it goes back to their motivation. Do the forward questions, family, occupation, recreation, dreams. That's the things we need to focus on. You're building the relationship. And then you're selling yourself by building the relationship. So let's see. So, of course, pricing, and then you're going to say something.
And they need to be bringing their seller's guide, the list.
Yeah, the listing presentation, and we'll go over that here in a little bit. And I don't know if everybody has that or if they don't, but this is another key thing. Of course, the CMA, you always need a professional looking CMA color. And the thing is, if you don't have this, and if you look in the track, they've got a customizable listing presentation you can use. Or we've got one, if you'll get with Rachel, we've got one in the office that is, we can add your picture, add your info. It's already pre-filled everything I forget how many pages.
It's 25 pages.
25 pages, but it's color. And what I'd suggest print it on the thicker paper. And what I would do, take it to Office Depot or somewhere, get it bound. That way it looks professional. And you don't want to leave that. So what you want to do, you go in, and when you're doing the actual listing presentation and talking to them, you have this great bound, thick color listing presentation that goes over everything you're going to be doing. And then, like I say, Rachel can do that. And that just sets you apart too. Most agents do not have a listing presentation. So you having such, and that this is goes back to, I'm hoping to finally list it this month or first of next month. We've been working with the seller. She just called out of the blue. She saw us on Zillow. We met with her well, it was before things. I know they originally hoped to list in Thanksgiving by Thanksgiving. We're still going. The mom, it's going to be an estate. Well, the mom's still living, but I think she got put in a different home, a nursing home, or I can't remember the details. But and then the two daughters are over it. Well, they've had surgeries and everything, and it just got put off. But and she told me when she called, she was interviewing other agents. So what I done, I had the full CMA. I had our listing presentation, and I've got, I know y'all have heard me talk about that Plod AI, that note taker. I wore it and I asked her, can I record the meeting? And I said, I'll send you the notes afterward. And that, we were there, I think, an hour and a half. And I got home, plugged it in, it transcribed it in seconds, had our full meeting, and it was pretty short and it had keynotes. It was itemized, everything. It was great.
Well, her sister couldn't be at the meeting.
Yeah, that was
So
another thing too. So the sister,
to share the notes.
yeah, so I emailed it to both of them. They had the full transcribe of the meeting. And during the meeting, she was going over like I done, and it was a unique property and it was, I think, a rock hold. So I branched out. That's the thing too. Don't be scared to branch out where we're in a rural market on your comps. If there's none in the specific area, branch out. You can go another county or so. And that was one thing she told me in the CMA. She's like, nobody else went out farther. They didn't find other unique properties. And then nobody had the listing presentation. She made numerous comments how prepared we were for this. And she was actually an agent, I think, in Pennsylvania. She just does it kind of part time. So she kind of knew too. But that set the expectation up front. And I've been in continuous communication with them, but we're going to end up listing that one. But if I hadn't went in prepared, and it shouldn't be just because I knew she was listing. Now I understand if it's somebody you know, it's a lot easier to do, but you should be prepared even if it's somebody you know doing the CMA and all that stuff. You got to show them up front and have the conversation, but it's even more viable for a lead you got come in that you don't know personally and things like that. Because always look at when you're going on a listing appointment, it's a job interview. So you need to treat it as such. Always expect that they're interviewing multiple agents. I've lost some listings in the past and I learned the hard way. I went in, thought I had it, didn't think they were interviewing nobody else. Next thing I know, a few days later, it's listed with another realtor. And that's broke me from that. So I go in, if I go on an appointment, I don't know them. And I mean, most now people repeat clients, so it's a lot easier once you get to that stage. But anybody I don't know, I'm doing what we did for the woman I just told you, the Rock Oaks property, and it's going to be almost a $400,000 listing, But I went in prepared, and you have to treat every single one the same way, build the relationship, treat it as an interview, job interview, because you want them to hire you. Just because you're going on an appointment doesn't mean you're going to get the job. You have to set yourself apart, and again, it all boils down, number one, building that relationship and building the trust. If they don't feel like they have a vibe with you, they don't feel like they have a good relationship or trust, it doesn't matter what you're going to do. They may vibe better with another agent. They're going to be steering toward that agent. The people interact with, you got to look at it from your perspective. You work with people you like, people you want to work with, things like that. So that's how it is on the listing presentation too.
And one other thing that really helped us get listings is when we're there, we always measure the house.
Yeah.
And a lot of sellers, they're like, you're the only agents that took time to measure. And a lot of times when we measure, the previous agent or the PVA is so off, we couldn't even give an accurate price based on that.
Yeah, I mean, most of them just use what the PVA has, which we know PVA is notoriously wrong on square footage. I mean, we've had it some that, I mean, it's hundreds and hundreds of square feet off, which affects the value. Um, I mean, I tell example all the time. Her aunt and uncle bought a house. It's been several years ago. The agent used the square footage on the PVA. I think it was like 1,400 and an acre. Well, she told them this house feels bigger. And if you ever
We
I know this.
measured.
Yeah, if you're off subject a little bit, but if you're with a buyer and you feel like something's wrong, measure the house on the spot if you need to. We've done that and got great deals, or the buyers were more comfortable. But she told them this house feels bigger. Well, they bought it, and at the time they were buying it, that was right during COVID. They paid what would have been top dollar for the 1,400 square foot house. Well, when the appraisal come back, it was over 1,900 square feet, and it had 3 acres. So the agent that done the listing really, she cost her buyers or her sellers probably about 25, $30,000.
And it was a top agent
Yes,
at the time.
a
So
very top
we
agent
was very
that's
surprised.
been in the business for a very long time, and she done a disservice. And that's why we are so adamant about measuring everything, because that's the only accurate way uh, to get the right square footage. But and again, it's our duty to try to get, they're hiring us to trust us to get the most money for their property. And when we're not going and doing these little steps, we're doing a disservice. But that is the other thing too. That's one of the first things when we sit down with a seller. We start talking to them and stuff, and then we tell them, "Do you care? We're going to go measure the house. You can have your little chit chat, have them show you around, tell the things like that, and then we go measure." And then that's where it comes up most. If they've interviewed or they've ever sold a property before, most agents don't measure. They just go by what the PVA uh, does for that. And a key thing that I learned too the hard way, I'll just throw it out to you all. Before you leave a listing, what's the number one thing you need before you leave? You need to always ask the seller.
You ask them if if you can have their business.
Yep.
Good job.
I learned the hard way on that. I've had some
We
listings, we'll go do the full presentation. They'll think, well, I'm just going to think about it, or okay, we'll talk later. And then I see it listed with another agent or whatever. We had one guy, and this is the story that's coming to my mind when I'm thinking about this. He called us. We went through the spiel, had the comps, and he had interviewed another agent already. And he kept asking, "Is there anything?" We were leaving. He was like, "Well, we're done." But he's like, "Is there anything else you need to ask me?" And we're like, kind of stunned. We're like, "No, I don't think so. I think we've covered everything." And he said it 2 or 3 times. "Are you sure there's nothing else you need to ask me?" And dummy us, it didn't click. He wanted us to ask him for his business. And he had it on Zillow. So he come in, we told him price, he was way overpriced. He dropped it like the next day or two, and then he sold it himself the following week. But I guarantee if we would have asked for the business, we would have left that listing. That's why I say too, any listing appointment you go, you have all your listing paperwork, you have your sign, you have everything ready to list it that day, even if you don't think you're getting a listing. Because we've been on appointments before, and then we've talked to them like, okay, let's go ahead and do it, and then boom, we've got everything we can sign. You don't want to give them time to think on things or contact another agent if you got it right then and there. Now, again, don't ever use a pressure tactic and try to pressure them into signing the listing. You want to win the listing by your professionalism, the confidence you've shown them, and the market knowledge in that, and then they are trusting. They're like, we need to get this agent right now. That's the mentality you want to get that. But that's key. Never leave without asking the business, even if it's going to be later. We can sign listings, date them later. If they say it's going to be 2 weeks, we're doing some things. No problem. If you want to go ahead and sign now, we can do this, and I'll just postmark, or we'll date it, and then we'll schedule. Once you get everything ready, we'll schedule our photographer, get everything. That way you don't have to fool with this later. But if they say no, da da da, don't pressure, then people can see through that. People don't like pressure. Then you become a sleazy car salesman, things like that. So you got to be tactful for it, but always, always ask for the business. So any questions that anybody has or anything right now, or something that may have sparked that you didn't think about, or
I got a question. That that professional CMA, I probably need Rachel to help me fix one of those. Um, I got a listing coming up probably next week. So
what I do, I'll kind of go back here and I'll just show you. Let me share my screen real quick. What I do. You can do, I know I say a full CMA. There's other things you can do, and most sellers are fine with this.
Are you talking about the listing presentation or the CMA?
The CMA on that right there, like where you said you put our picture and stuff on it and kind of
That's the
make it look.
listing presentation.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah, the
I probably.
listing presentation, she'll put your picture. We've already got a template.
We can show. I can make him one.
Yeah, she'll make you one. We can send it to you. And then, like I say, I suggest going and having it bound at Office Depot or something that way. And don't leave them that copy. Keep that copy, but that's something you can show or let them go through. Or you can always, you'll have the PDF file, so you can always email it too. That was like Roxy and Anna had talked to this expired and done a phone appointment. And I'm like, well, did you follow up or did you do the listing presentation? She's like, well, it was on the phone. I said, email it to them. You know, tell them you've got something else you needed to go over to show them what they do because they were interviewing other agents. I'm like, email them that listing presentation. I said, that's going to set you apart. That way they have time to go through everything. And it's just going to show, excuse me, the professionalism, what you've done. You're going above and beyond. That's the thing with any job interview. If you're going above and beyond that interview, people look at it, you know, if they're going this much and they know this much and going to the extreme to get my business, this is who I want to go with. You know, it's setting that precedent up front and the expectation to get that. But what, let me show you, I'll share my screen again real quick and show you how I do the CMA. You know, say I'm not going to do a full CMA, but I'll just show you the what I click on and what I take. But typically, like I said, say we're going to use all these properties here for our comps. So I run two different ones. So I've got these selected. I'll come over here to the CMA and then I'll do a one line CMA and then I'll do the use selected and I'll show you the difference. The one line's what I like I showed you a while ago for the expired list. And the reason I like both of these, it just breaks it down easier. And then the other one has pictures to show them, you know, is this a true comparable that they can look at? But, you know, it breaks it down by like this is active, expired, or if there was sold. Like if I'm doing actual CMA, I'm going to have, you know, closed properties, pendings, contingent, anything, and active. You want to try to get minimum three actives and three solds. But the biggest weight you want to put in, and a lot of sellers, they'll look at these actives. Well, you know, this house is selling for listed for 400. That's what I want for mine. But again, it may have been on the market 200 days. So that's the data, you know, we need to show the things like here, the DOM is days on market. And CDOM, if you're not familiar with that, that's cumulative days on the market. And what the cumulative means, total time. So it's been either that agent's brought it back after it expired or they've relisted with another agent. So that shows the total time that it has been advertised at some point in time. Instead, you know, if it goes a new agent listed, it resets the days on market, but it does not reset the cumulative days unless it's been over 30 days. And then we can look at them, show them what the original list price, what it's currently now, you know, and then go over the details if, you know, the bedrooms, bath, square footage, acreages match up. But I'm going to usually, if there was solds, the closed are down here, but these are the ones I'm going to show them the biggest weight because this is what the market is telling us. This is what an appraiser, and this is another thing I always go to when I tell them we're looking at it from an appraiser standpoint. The majority of sales are financed. There's an appraiser involved. The appraiser is putting the biggest weight on the closed properties. So this is what we really want to focus on. You know, we can list it for whatever price, and that's what these are up here, but doesn't mean it's going to sell. The solds that would be down here, that's the biggest weight that we want to push to those. So let's see. So I always print that one line and then I'll come over here and do this CMA again. And then I'll do the use selected that I've got selected. And you've got several options here. You've got a full CMA, quick CMA, statistical CMA. I don't think I've ever played with the statistical. And you got to be careful when you're going over stuff. Most people don't care about all the details. They don't need, you don't want to put too much information where it overwhelms them and they just kind of get brain fog. Like, you know, you just really want to sum everything up. Now, you can do the full CMA, like where you upload a picture of their house, you can pull it off the MLS, or you can take a picture, things like that, and it breaks down like, you know, you can do price adjustments. It looks more like an actual full blown appraisal. I usually don't do that. Now, I will do a full CMA. There's been times, say, there's like a court ordered sale or something like that that they have to take before a judge or something like that. I will do the full CMA because it does look more professional, um, and all that. And that's something you can play with at your convenience on that. But typically, what I just do the quick CMA. And typically, we'll just view this. I just leave it like it is, and then I'll print this and I print it in color. And of course, we can see it's got the actual pictures of the houses, and it's going to have most of the same information here, but that way they can compare it to the one line that's easier to read versus this one, but they can actually see the picture of the property that we're using as a comparable and if it is something similar. And it does have graphs and some of these things, but I always print this in color. And the reason I say that, we had a listing one time, this has been years ago, and I've done it, which I always done it anyway, but I make sure we went on the appointment, done the CMA, and he made the comment. He'd interviewed another agent. He's like, that other agent only printed in black and white. And why do you think that's a big deal?
Um, I think the black and white probably looked unprofessional to him, and
That, and it's cheap. It's cost more to print in color. So they think you're cheap, you're not professional, and it made a difference on him that we actually printed in color. And plus it's easier to see. You can tell what it's hard to tell a black and white property what it looks like sometimes, the details and stuff. So that's why I say everything you do that you're taking on an appointment needs to be in color. With these, it just enhances the professionalism, and people don't want somebody that's going to be cheap because then, what are they going to skimp on my listing? But that's typically when I do a CMA, what I print off and actually take to the appointment.
And also address the part.
Yeah,
And I was thinking about your nails. Remember that lady? And
yeah,
about your
we
nails?
had, we went on an appointment one time, and she uh she commented on my nails, and she said they're clean. She said you didn't have dirt and grime, and she said that means you take care of yourself. I would have never paid attention, but she noticed my appearance, and that made an impression. Or we got the listing, but if I'd have probably had dirt under my nails or grime or something, or hadn't washed my hands, she she probably would have killed the not listed with us just over that. So little things like that. I always dress the part up, especially somebody I don't know first time. I'm always dressing up, wearing nicer clothes, things like that, manicured things that sets an impression. It's just same. Say if you went to a doctor or an attorney's office and they're bummed out and this that, that's just going to give you a bad impression. Do I want this attorney represent me? You go in, he's wearing a wife beater and shorts and flip flops. Is that who I want representing me in court? Or same thing with the doctor. Is that who I want operating on me or something? So, which doesn't necessarily equate to anything. Some people can be like that and they be the best, but it's just the mental thing people have. So you want to look the part and dress the part. Now, once you work with them, I start dressing down or something like that. But usually, first, I always dress up. Now, if you're going, say you're going on a land listing, you're going to be tromping around in mud and stuff. No, you don't need to wear a suit and tie. I wear boots and jeans and things like that. But now, if I'm going on a higher end listing, I'm dressed up. I don't necessarily wear a tie, but I will wear button ups and slacks and nice shoes and things like that. But it does make a difference on those things. Like I say, you're going for a job interview, so you got to hit that part. And from the top down, everything you do, you've got to, dress for success, essentially. So, but that's basically on this week of track with the listing presentation and getting everything where it all boils down to. And that's kind of, if you take your time, there's actually, and this is where it goes back to the role playing in the script books. There's all kinds of seller objections, different things. You're going to run into the same things. And a lot of times, what's the commission? What do you charge? Can you do it for this? And those are things that you need to be able to object to. And so, and most of the time when people, I'll just do a real quick thing with the commission. Most of the time, if they say, "Will you do it for 5%?" I just flat cut them off. Our rate's 6%, and they don't say another word. But now, if they start, well, such and such said they'd do it for this amount. Why won't you do it for that? I understand there's discount agents out there, but my full service and everything, what I'm going to do And this is where it boils down to, like if you know your list to price ratio on your sales, my sales are 97% list to price ratio that I'm getting from my sellers. I guarantee that other agents is not. So even that other agent, you may pay a percent or something less in the commission. More than likely, their sales are less, which is costing you money. You're going to pay me, what my value is. Plus, I'm going to make you more money on the back end. So that's ways to counter those. And like I say, there's tons of objections in that script book that you really need to do. And that's why, again, we talk about the role playing. But there is a role play video you'll see in the track course. I don't really care for it. It's not how I would handle the situation. I felt the agent asked too many questions. I felt they were a little pushy. They talked too much instead of letting the seller. And again, I know it's role play. It's not real, so it kind of can be, it's scripted. But
They were trying to put as many objections in the
they were trying to make it for all that. But
yes, but
it's
it
and
was a little too much.
it was a little too much. Most aren't going to be like that. Honestly, the biggest things people want to know, and I had a seller one time before. I remember I sat down a listing appointment, and I don't ever do this. I was like telling him my numbers, this, that, and he stopped me right in the middle of the interview. And he's like, I don't care what your numbers are. I don't care what you sold. I don't care any about that. And he looked right at me. He's like, what are you going to do to sell my house? And that's why I always go in with the marketing, the things, what I'm actually going to be doing, what sets us apart that we're getting more homes. So that's the number one thing they care about, what you're going to do. And that's where you talk about the open lines of communication, how you're going to weekly minimum get with them. So it's just those little things that most agents skimp on or they forget or neglect that sets the tone, or they don't get the listing, or it expires. They didn't have the conversations with the sellers in those instances. So, but that's all I've got for getting the listing. I'll open it up to you guys if y'all have any other questions or want to discuss anything further. We can talk about that as well.
That's pretty much it. Rachel, I need to ask you a question after the meeting's over about something. So, but
Okay.
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 Yeah, I'm going to unrecord it. But guys, I appreciate this week. Like I say, right now, which what we're seeing with the market, it's picking up. We're hitting the spring market, so a lot of these listings that are coming, again, everything you're doing.
So, did you mean to raise your hand?
That's my mouse that
Oh,
shows that. No, it would show raise hand out here, or it would show here. But
okay.
that's the biggest thing, which I know a lot of agents get discouraged. But remember, everything your lead generation, most of it, it's 90 days out. So that's why we've been pushing so hard. Back in November, December, working these things, and you're seeing it all come down. It's hitting the spring market. And like, well, a while ago, I looked on that. There was 20 something new listings today or from the weekend. They're coming. So the market's getting ready, in my opinion, really pick up. And like we had a bunch of listings and not really much going on. And there, within a matter of days, we had 5 pendings. It's just the buyers were just boom, boom, boom. And I prefer, again, it's your business, run however you want. Some people prefer buyers, and it's a good to have a mix, but where we're busy doing other things, I prefer the listings. There's less time involved on evenings, weekends, things like that, where buyers will run you a lot like that. So it's easier. And especially if you're dual career, it's easier to manage listings time wise. And the thing I've always loved about listings, everybody's working for you. Once you get it signed, all the buyers, all the other agents, they're working for you. They're trying to get your property sold. So it's great to have. Whereas buyers, I've been burnt too many times over the years. You'll show them a house here or there, and next thing you know, you see on Facebook next week they bought through such and such, and congratulating them when you've done everything right. But there's just not a lot of loyalty sometimes in buyers. It's easier like that. So, but again, if anybody I'll open it up. If anybody does anybody have anything to say before I end it or ask? Okay. Well, guys, appreciate it. We'll next week, and still try every week to get your 25 contacts. And I know it's hard to keep up working and busy, but just try to do what you can. And these things, you're going to get nuggets out of every one, and it'll pay off. And next week we'll be working with buyers. So if you can get caught up on this, and then we'll start going over how to work and how to handle buyers next week. So appreciate it.
All right. See you.
All right.